We got quite a few opportunities and applications to share with you today, so look forward to that. I appreciate the attendance and the interest in Tolomatics, so thanks for that. This is Tolomatics ToloTalks. We're on our 7th week, I think, and we are doing an applications week. So yesterday we took people through a number of applications on medical-related applications, pharmaceutical, etc. That recording will be posted on our website later this week. And if you missed that, please look to check that out. And then we're going to move into automotive tomorrow, automotive and tire manufacturing in particular, and end up with some defense applications, so defense and aerospace. Today, however, we're going to focus on food and beverage. And I just took a quick snapshot here on the right-hand side of the page. This is out of our corporate brochure. Our business really has its foundations in the food business. So Burton Tolles started Tolomatic in 1954. And he did that by creating this flour packaging machine. And in order to create that flour packaging machine, he had to create a few different devices. So as he ran out of flour packaging customers, he started selling some of the widgets that he had designed, the floater shaft and the cable cylinders being the two primary ones. So, and we've moved on from there. So we'll actually talk a little bit about one application, a new application with this right angle gearbox, and then we'll spend we're going to take you through about 12 applications, should be about 40 minutes or so, and should be interesting, I hope. So with that, I'm going to kick things off and ask Mr. Staines to take us through this first application win here with a denesting application. Brian?
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, this was a large repeat part number OEM. They're in the conveyor and denesting for the food and beverage industry. So a denester is designed to receive and separate the columns of plastic returnable soft drink trays onto the shell of a washer or a conveyor. What it does, it requires the side guides on this to be adjustable for different size trays. So these guys were previously having to adjust the side guides with manual hand cranks and pneumatic actuators. And for that, the changeovers and things of that nature were taking an extremely long time, slowing down production. And so all the machines they have to be washed down. Yeah, as you can imagine, in a soft drink related area, if something busts, there's syrup and, very kind of caustic-y, sticky substances that have to be washed down. So the whole machine has to be stainless steel washed down. And so anyway, the actuators that we proposed here were part of our stainless steel line, the ERD line. And like I said, they were doing manual adjustments with and pneumatic indexing. So the changeovers took some time. Next slide. So we proposed, last week I did the rod style ERD series last Friday on the webinar. And so in the right-hand corner with the circles here, you can see, Andy, if you'll put your index over there to show everybody, we have the ERD SS2 option. So it's the ERD stainless steel wash down actuator with the motor in a can. So IP69K full wash down. There were 8 of these on the initial sale here. So we'd quoted the technology. We shipped the product. When we shipped the product with our ACS drive, they had some programming issues initially. So to help them out, we flew one of our electrical programming engineers down, got the programming right. And so since then, we have gotten over $100,000 worth of orders from these guys. But what I will say is these guys also make conveyors. And so from a stainless steel ERD SS2 option, you can also use these actuators on kickoffs, conveyor kickoffs, and level 1, level 2 raising and lowering of conveyors. So we've done multiple applications for these guys, but this was a big win for us, and we continue to do business with them upwards of $100,000 a year. So that's it.
Great, thank you, Mr. Staines. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Sondergeld. So, Brian.
Hey, everybody, I'm Brian number 2, I guess. So for this application, it's a simple application. So as Andy mentioned, we make we call our SRG, or slide right gearbox. It's a right angle gearbox, been in production for a long time. We are probably the low cost supplier of such a gearbox, and it's used extensively in food and beverage. Fillers, denesters, as Mr. Staines just mentioned, and in this case, a field berry processing table. And all these are doing, I'll show you a picture on the next slide when we get there, is adjusting the height of the table because different workers need heights. Ergonomically, you want to have it in an optimal position. Most berries, like blueberries and everything, are hand-picked. So the berries get put on this line, and then they get put in a big hopper and taken into the processing point. In the past, they just had exposed gearing, and again, these SRGs are way down at the bottom near the feet. They get dragged through the mud. And we have a corrosion-resistant SRG, which is just perfect for this. Would you go to the next slide, please, Andy? So here's a close-up picture of it. It can be adjusted from either side. They just use one-to-one, right? So it just has to turn a right angle gear set that raises and lowers the tables, and they want them coordinated. You don't want one side higher than the other or anything. And this customer designed this in several years ago. They buy hundreds of these a year. Easy sale. So you're out of these food and bev coverage customers, don't forget about the SRG. It's like a really easy sell for these customers. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Brian. With that, we're going to move on, and Dave Schmidt in the Central Plains area, he's got a couple applications to share with you. David.
Good morning, everyone. So yeah, I'm going to talk about one that we've had for a while, which is in the volumetric filling application, where in this picture down underneath the big hopper, you'll see pneumatic cylinders in place there. And those were very time consuming for the customer, where they required manual adjustment. And they were also not very accurate in that the cylinders that, or the tubes that they would pump through would get clogged and so forth, and the doses would not be very accurate. And for anybody that isn't familiar with the food and beverage market, you have to be exact or meet the minimum requirements. So if a package is 8 ounces, it's got to have 8 ounces. It can have more, but no less. So with our solution with the stainless steel IMA, we were much more accurate, and we developed this product with this customer for a full partnership where we replaced the 2.5-inch air cylinder at 80 PSI, providing about 400 pounds of force and 30 to 40 cycles a minute. The actuators that we've provided have a max thrust capacity of up to 2,000 pounds and a speed of 19 inches per second. And we developed this specifically with them to meet envelope and mounting requirements. Next slide. So as I mentioned, we were replacing pneumatic cylinders. We were also being evaluated against XLR for our electric actuators. XLR did not have a aesthetically appealing and hygienic design like we were able to do. So again, we started from a white sheet of paper with this customer and provided a custom design 3 years after our initial proposal. And so we got in with them. They found some beta sites and tested the units on a couple machines, pie fillers and such, for almost a year, 9 months. And we learned through that for various sealing properties and designs. And this customer really helped us because we're utilizing our roller screw technology, learn what we needed to provide for the market there, and get into providing our, well, developing the IMA stainless steel actuator with internal anti-rotate and Rockwell automation feedback with our Hyperface DSL encoder. So again, this product is a hygienic IP69K all stainless steel 316 design. So next slide. Hello?
Yep. Should be there, Dave. The meat
It's
process.
not advancing on my screen. There we go. Okay, so this next application is a meat and food processing, various markets and so forth. This is a true Erpino where they approached us. They were utilizing or using hydraulics and also again had used XLR, but the XLR was not performing, and the hydraulics caused too much risk for them. They needed a high force, high duty cycle actuator to fit in a very compact space, as you can see with the shroud there around the actuator assemblies. Because this is not above the food product and is housed in a IP69K chamber, we can utilize the white paint design on the actuators. And again, this is a high force and continuous stroke cycle with anti-rotate requirements. Next slide. It's not advancing. There we go. Okay. So we started discussions with this company in December of 2017. As I mentioned, they were not very enchanted or enthralled with XLR and their responsiveness from a technical or partnership standpoint. So they actually helped us do a lab test. So we did a detailed competitive analysis, particularly with the roller screw that's in these RSX actuators, and calculated the power and wattage and the heat that can be generated with the screw and nut assembly in these high force, high speed applications. So then 6 months after our initial discussion, we got a prototype purchase, and then they got into a beta site test in November of 2018 and started production in the first quarter of 2019. And we've been doing business with them ever since. So they do about 20 machines a year of this design. They've got several designs. And again, the key here is that formulating that partnership, and we met their expectations, worked with them on the full development of the machine, and helped them achieve their goals, providing the fastest and most powerful food processing machine on the market, where it's doing up to 15,000 pounds of force at up to 60 cycles a minute. So next slide. All right, the next one here was also a long sales cycle for us, where we had customers wanting to utilize or incorporate a walking beam pulling sides of pork and beef through a chilling room as it needs to age and be checked for bacterial issues and so forth. So this was an Erpinome and an end user. They'd historically been using hydraulic products or actuators to move the sides of meat. And the risk there is that you could, if you blow a seal or a fitting or crack a hose, you contaminate thousands of pounds of meat, and that could, be up over $1 million in product. So it gets very risky and expensive, and quarantining it, even with the full US or food and beverage hydraulic fluid, vegetable oil, and so forth. The USDA oftentimes just wants that meat discarded. So the hydraulic operation under cold temperatures, as many of you are familiar with, is highly fluctuating and can cause that risk as the fittings and stuff expand and contract due to temperature variances. So there was a difficulty in installation, all being overhead. and maintenance and service practices on that. Next slide. So as I mentioned, this was a pretty long sales cycle. We started our initial discussions with them back in 2013. Finally got a beta site test to run a RSA 50 for an entire year to verify that it would perform and work. And 2 times over that year, they had some performance issues, but we were quick to respond and met their requirements. But really, it was more of a feedback and the positional feedback. They were using a switch that was mechanical in nature versus a digital switch, and got them to change out from that to for that performance issue that I previously mentioned. But the benefits, I guess, again, we eliminated that risk of contamination, provided the high thrust capability at up to 3,000 pounds of meat on a line here, and reduce their maintenance and operating costs, and made the product to fit in their hydraulic footprint, and again, providing local and factory support. Formulated a solid partnership, and in this application we the customer went with Cole Morgan Motors. They bought 100 units at over a $250,000 order. This next one here kind of feeds off of the other food processing, the meat and food processing application I did two back. Where that company makes these logs of meat, this company then has a machine that slices them. And this too is an Erpanome where we've formulated a solid partnership with them, and they've been using a pneumatic, or tried to use a pneumatic solution, but it was unable to provide the continuous accuracy and repeatability. Our competition on the electric arena couldn't meet the hygienic design, again, this being XLR. And so this stainless steel boxed electric actuator provides an open architecture for them. And we're utilizing our new stainless steel IMA 33. And we've conducted lunch and learns to start the process with them. And 5 months later, got a prototype order, and 6 months after that, got into production PO. So, next slide. So this was one of the first customers of the full production release, IMA stainless steel, where I had the privilege of selling the other ones way back on the volumetric fillers, but again, these products have the ability to provide very high speeds and are very efficient. All IP69K hygienic design in a compact package. And again, this allows for open machine architecture for easy cleaning. And the partnership that we've got with this particular customer has provided additional opportunities for us on new machine designs.
Great. Thanks a lot, Dave. Appreciate it. Keith Hogan, got 3 applications that you're going to share with us here.
Thanks, Andy. Good morning, everybody, and afternoon for those that apply, actually. Yeah, so another food and beverage application here. You know, most people know that we have to fill containers, but a lot of people don't know, at least I didn't know, that you have to dry them after they've gone through some washing machine. So this is an OEM. What they had was a manual system where they would adjust the nozzles, because all of these containers, bottles, cans, etc., come in on a belt. And that belt is positioned according to the height of the bottle. And so in order to get a good drying, forced air on top of the cans or bottles. They have to have an accurate position so they can be up above the bottle or can. And what they had was a manual system where they'd loosen up some bolts, slide it up and down, and then tighten it back down again. Well, that required them to open and close the machine doors, and then reset the system, et cetera. And they just couldn't get the throughput that they wanted. They thought about pneumatics, but that's not an infinite positioning situation, so they'd only have a few positions. And they needed IP69K. So next slide, Andy. So in drying these, they needed to height multiple positions, and the part of the problem was that they had splashing of water in and out and corroding some of the fixturing that they had. So they needed IP69K stainless steel solution. We provided them with an ERD15 with the SS2 can on the back. The prototypes have been out, tested, approved, and so it's an OEM that's going to be making 4 machines, or 4 units per machine rather, and then 10 machines per year. So that's going to be a nice OEM continuous business for us. Next slide, Andy. Okay, so this one's a little bit different. Food and beverage, we kind of went out on a limb and said, if you're going to have food and beverage, you have to be clean. So this dishwashing pod manufacturer, actually the pods for the dishwashing systems are relatively new. It's a market that's growing quite rapidly. This customer was asked to make a machine that filled multiple pods at one time and then separated them after they were filled. So the challenge with some of these machines is they sit very close to the floor. There's not a lot of space to really put actuators, and historically some of this stuff has been done, with just a cylinder. So they needed to have some corrosion resistance, and they wanted to obviously automate the system so that it was a turnkey solution. So how this came about was in 2017, we went out and tried to speak with this customer. We were working on a different application. They actually didn't understand some of the tolerances and stuff that we had for our light duty ERDs. We ended up making that right for them. The customer was happy with us, and so fast forward to 2019. Next slide, Andy. They had a new machine that they were developing for this pod machine, and because we had made the last application right and did them well, they came to us right away because they had been introduced to our IMA series. So what they had to do in this application is you see there's actually a belt, pretty wide belt of all these different pods. And so this is a continuous feed operation. So as the belt was moving forward, the IMA was asked to match the speed of the belt as the depositor was filling each one of the pods, and then it would back up and it would do it again and back up and do it again. So the continuous feed was important, and they were in a situation where they had to have some corrosion resistance due to the material that they were dispensing. So what they ended up asking for was a stainless steel rod and fasteners. They didn't need the white coating. It was going to take an extra few weeks for us to provide the white coating, so we made it a special and added stainless steel fasteners and stainless steel rod, as well as in this one they wanted a stainless steel clevis on the end of the rod. They were really interested in the IMA 22 simply because it was the right force and size, etc. But they ended up going with the 33 simply because they really wanted that integrated grease port so that they could grease it over time. So the product was modified. This is a machine that's actually could be quite a few in a year. The cycles that they asked for was 20 million cycles per year. The stroke was 75 millimeters, speed 100 millimeters per second, which is pretty average for the IMA. And then the mass was only 66 kilograms, but it's a growing industry. They're expected to do some really good volume. They think somewhere around 20 a year. And the machines that they make are going to be in more and more demand as these pods increase. So next slide, Andy.
I think that's it, Keith. Oh, yeah, you got one more. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay, this is an interesting application. It's a company that makes hard candy. I always envision it like the Werther's candy that is hard and relatively small, kind of a candy for Halloween. Anyway, so now you've got a repeat part number OEM customer, had been historically using hydraulic. They had made, we were the second guys to come into play. They had made an electric actuator driven machine, but they, ironically, the competitor sized it incorrectly. It wasn't performing the way they expected. So we got the chance at the business. Now what you're looking at there, it's a multi-head depositor. So in that tray between the two towers is the depositor, and on either side in each tower, they historically had a hydraulic cylinder set up on either side. Now you can imagine if you get hydraulics leaking in that environment, that can make a lot of problems for a lot of people very quickly. So next slide, please. So when we jumped into the application, in those towers, they had already installed an electric actuator. We took a look at it, and some of their issue, not all, but some of their issue was the fact that they had used a rigid side mount with a interesting clamp mechanism to connect to the depositor, and that was creating some severe side load on the actuators. So we worked with them. The reason that their attachment on the end of the rod was so complex was the fact that they had to incorporate a anti-rotate in their application so that they knew exactly where the position was of those heads. Well, we took a look at it and we said, you know what, we can make a built-in anti-rotate on this because it's not required to be washed down. Since it's being shielded in that, this is not a washdown application. So we went to work, created an IMA with a hexagon rod, and having a hexagon rod with a bushing on the end that fit that rod, we actually have an internal anti-rotate version of that IMA, and it was the IMA 44. Now, behind each one of those tower shields is 2 IMAs. So there's 4 IMAs in each one of those towers, or in each one of those depositing heads. So the customer uses about 50 a year, and they look at using this design for at least up to 10 years. And not only that, we've really got a friend in this customer, and now they're looking at ERD stainless steel and have applications for that as well. So good customer.
Thanks a lot, Keith. Perfect. Mr. Farley, Adam.
Hi, thanks, Andy. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, this is a volumetric filling application. So this is a customer that typically had been doing these machines pneumatically for years and years. So to start the conversation, moving from electric, I call it the leap of faith. meaning, you're all in, customer's going to be all in on this. So that's, embracing, controls, PLC controls, servo actuation, all that good stuff. When going, when just, going to electric. So, the issues with this customer were pneumatic or position and accuracy. There's always, the chance of air leaks. So you could under or overfill, and that's a big deal in this in volumetric filling world. I think Dave Schmidt mentioned that earlier in a slide. And then, the high cost of running air just at a plant and just having compressors running in the background. All right, next slide, Andy. So, discussion started, early 2016. Again, this customer makes multi-port systems. So, we started off making an 8-port filler, and then it just took off from there. Again, as you can tell by the photo, real nice, clean setup with, our ERD 15s, all SS2, servo-driven, all our servo-driven actuators with our ACS drive. Customers benefit for this. Again, feedback, accuracy, repeatability. He gets all that. He also gets the washdown feature of the actuator in the full assembly. Because of this, he gets higher yield rates, low scrap rates, and then, energy savings just based on, going from electric. And again, this is a standard solution from us, just an ERD 15, as you can tell by the part string there. All right, next slide. This is more of a material handling application in food and beverage. It's a good customer. These challenge for this guy is a large bakery drying ovens. And these, as you can tell, these racks are fairly large. They're fairly heavy. And it was been a manual operation for years and years at the plant. So, they would constantly have to pull an operator off a line to actually push and move these racks along the drying lines before they go into the chopping lines. These are actually for crouton. It's a crouton manufacturer. So again, just getting back to the heavy loads, the heavy racks. As I mentioned, a staggered operation. So the racks would come and go. This drying, if you look down here, this thing's probably 60 feet long. These large drying areas. As a manual operation, it definitely caused ergonomic issues. You had some people trying to push some of the larger racks. Yeah, they are guided, but they can get in some jamming. The racks can jam in some instances, so they will find out that they were having some throughput issues. They are it is a washdown plant, so everything there needs to be washed down, and it's a multi-line facility. And if you look up on the right-hand side, it's got we have a large ERD 30 in there, and that drives that whole rack into the assembly there. So next slide. So again, just a little more closer picture of what the unit looks like. But nice, again, ERD 30, standard IP 69K. We went with the roller screw. This is a 24/7 plant, so they wanted reliability, long life. That's why we went with the roller screw. We did a lot of engineering support for this operation, just making sure that we had enough, the ERD was sized properly. The distributor supplied a full value add on this, supplying washdown motor from Cole Morgan, as well as supplying the complete control panel, startup, software, all the assistance from the distributor end on that side. The win-win is Again, consistent output. They don't have to pull, an operator out of another part of the manufacturing line to keep this to keep these racks moving, and they haven't had any ergonomic concerns at all since these have been in place. That's it. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, great. Thanks, Adam. So just to close out this session, this Tolo Talk, we have 3 last applications. Rich Braga got pulled away with a family situation, so wishing him well. But I'm going to just finish out the last 3 applications here. This one is interesting, tying into our brand new product just out in the last 6 months or so, this IMA stainless steel. This customer had been using electric actuators in the past, was very excited about the solution that we were creating and that we had in our development process. So they waited for a little while. They talked to us about the cheese slicing that they wanted to do, but they really wanted it to be easy to clean. They wanted to have integration that was simple with their control system, and they wanted to make sure it was washed down in IP69K. So we worked with them and were able to give them the single cable connection here, so it would tie right into their Rockwell Control Logic system. Rockwell's the PLC of choice for, I don't know, about 70% of the food and beverage industry in North America anyways, I think. So we made that as part of the standard design for our new product. We provided the customer with that motor/actuator solution, and all from one supplier. So you can see here, all stainless steel machine. We started talking to them about an ERD with a stainless steel motor mounted on top of that. And the customer was a little bit concerned, as some are, about the sealing between that motor and the ERD itself. So they decided to defer and wait a little while until we had this all-in-one solution available. So we did a lot of work with their engineering team back and forth, our application engineering group, a number of drawings sent back and forth to ensure that we had fit correctly. But at the end of the day, customer bought a couple of units, installed them, everything's been going great. They're very happy with the new design and the upgraded feature set that they get with this new integrated stainless steel IMA. It's another customer here that makes milk packaging equipment. So this is a repeat part number OEM, and they're doing milk packaging and case packing. So this could be applicable to just about anything that you are case packing. The automation of the machine, they had been doing a lot of it pneumatically before and some of it manually. So you see on the sides here the manual side guide adjustments where they do that with a hand tightening. We'll talk about replacing those, and then they pneumatically would get 4 jugs on a plate here, drop the plate down, unload those 4 jugs into the box as the box moves on to then be closed up and shipped out. So those were the 2 applications. Challenges, we really wrestled with this idea, is it a washdown application or not? So, and they were using a competitor at that point. So we worked with them, and we helped. The first thing that we did was we worked with them to put some ERDs on their lane adjustments here. So took off the manual piece, put an ERD on. Now that with a push of a button, they could handle different size milk cartons coming down instead of having an operator go out and adjust those, trying to find the marker, Sharpie fit in, mark on the side of the metal here so they knew where to put them. That went very well. And then we kept talking about displacing the competition up on this move here to drop the cartridge, the milk down into the box. We led with our ERD saying, hey, it's an all stainless steel machine, you're in food and beverage, don't you want wash down? The customer just couldn't figure out how to make their whole system competitive with their whatever else was out in the marketplace, their competition, with a stainless steel actuator. So we said, hey, you are not in a washdown environment. Everything's been packaged up here. It's coming down the line. The competition you're using is not a washdown piece of equipment. We have a number of other actuator options. So we looked at both the standard IMA as well as our RSA, and ultimately they went with an RSA solution here. So the RSA is mounted on top. RSA indexes, drops down, drops the milk down into the box, retracts back up, sets up for the next set as they come along. So Solution's been working great. No issues with integration, and the customer's been working with us for 2 or 3 years now with that solution. So our final solution for the food ToloTalk is one on stacking. So stacking and packaging. Whenever you make these, all sorts of things get stacked. So we're showing meat patties here, waffles, tortillas. We have stacked a lot of different food products over the years. And this is just one example here. So what they're doing though is they have a sorting table up here. All the food comes down the line. It gets diverted into lanes basically. And now we're indexing down. One gets placed on top, it indexes down. The second one lands on top, indexes down, third, fourth, and then drops all the way down, lets it onto the conveyor here. Now we're in a stack, and that stack can be placed into packaging. So it's really just taking a lot of the hand touching. Usually you'd have an operator standing above it, moving things around, stacking them up. You'd have concerns about hair, about, in this COVID environment, about breathing around the product here, that hands and gloves touching everything. So kind of a touch-free way, but you need fairly accurate indexing application. They had done this pneumatically and it had been successful, but over time they saw that using electric, they could actually ensure a better stacking solution for their customers. So they needed to be able to clean it in place, and they needed to integrate it with their control package. So they started using our ICR our product. This was, boy, 5 to 10 years ago, and they liked that solution. It worked well. However, there's a lot of bagging kind of the entire unit itself that was required, and I can show you a package here. So none of the entire actuator really wasn't designed as a hygienic type of actuator. So they would bag the motors, and they would sort of live with the other part of the actuator sticking down here, despite the fact that it was aluminum and not stainless. So they really wanted to replace some of their pneumatics with electric. So we did that with the ICR. Then they decided, it'd be better to move towards an ERD solution with stainless. So we helped them spec out ERD. They put our ACSI motors on top, and the customer bags the motor when they do the wash down, but everything else can be completely clean. And all the motors are along the top here. We're able to easily integrate with their Rockwell control architecture that they had standardized on. And we also worked with them a little bit on a custom MXP application for their pneumatic application. So it's been a really good customer for us. We've had a long relationship with them, helping to make sure everyone's getting their Lego waffles for breakfast. So